Welcome to Melt. I'm Suresh Venkat. Now, not many people know that India is the third largest consumer of alcohol in the world. On the contrary, many know the challenges and obstacles with marketing liquor brands in the country. How do such brands navigate the challenge? I'll find out today in a conversation with Zeenah Vilcassim, Marketing Director, Bacardi India. She took up the role in April 2021. How does Bacardi India market its brand to its audience? Let's find out as we get ready to melt with Zeenah Vilcassim. Zeenah, for starters, give us a dummy's guide to alcohol marketing. As per today's Indian law, what's allowed, what's not?
India is the third biggest market for alcohol globally. But as you know, there's a whole host of rules and regulations that come with that. It originally started in 1995 when there was a ban put on all TV advertising of alcohol products, with the exception of a surrogate or brand extension. So you can communicate on TV a product that is about the virtues or the ethos of your brand. More recently, ASCI came in, the Advertising Standard Councils of India, and they put some parameters around it to make sure they were legitimate products that are available for consumers. So this product has to be in market, it has to generate 5 crores nationally, or if it's under 2 years old, it needs 20 lakhs per month. Currently, the surrogate advertising ecosystem makes up about 600 to 800 crores worth, of which 70% is primarily on TV. Now, TV is great as a viewership, but it's also passive viewing. So that you need to think about multiple other platforms that we can push our messages out to consumers and communicate the benefits responsibly of our products. Now, digital platforms have a whole different host of what is allowed and what isn't allowed. Most of them you're allowed to advertise openly, so you can show alcohol, you can show the product, you can show consumption. And then also there's OTT platforms as well that kind of waver between what you are allowed to show. I think for us at Bacardi, what we always do is keep consumer at the heart. So where are our consumers? You know, they're not just watching TV, they're not just on social media, they're not just engaging with OTT or live events. So we look at how do we authentically and transparently communicate the virtues of our brand where our consumers are consuming that media.
And on-ground events, music, for instance, was a big part of your marketing platform. And in the last 2 years, with venues being shut down, live events being shut down, how did your brand survive?
Yeah, so I think Bacardi is probably the biggest brand that really taps into those live event spaces. So Bacardi's always been about independent music, sustainability, and connections, inspiring people to do what makes them happy, to do what moves them. When the pandemic hit, which is a primary source of where our advertising budget goes, we had to adapt. And so we took Casa Bacardi, which is our Caribbean immersive live events platform that champions music, food, connections with friends. We took that virtually. We hosted concerts. We gave party kits to people so they consume in their home. And then we had to take it the next step further because there was a little bit of virtual event fatigue that happened after the second wave of the pandemic. So what we did, we elevated that and we took it onto the Metaverse and we let consumers create their own avatars and be in a space with their friends in their own avatars, having drinks, having fun, and actually giving people a whole new take on what those virtual events looked like. However, now when things are back and opened, it's looking at what is a model that people feel comfortable in doing. Are we going to do 30,000 events in the near future? Probably not. Are we going to create hybrid models where those people that are comfortable going to 5,000 person events can be there as much as those that want to sit at the comfort of their own home and experience that festival with some nice drinks and a small group of friends is exactly where we're going to be going towards.
But does this Metaverse experience replicate the joy of going to a live concert, as running into people, bumping into people, the actual taste of food, the actual taste of drink? How does the Metaverse compensate for any of these sensory experiences?
I'm sure you've spoken to enough marketeers that have been waiting for like AR and VR to catch up with where we think it is. And I think now it's finally there. It's just about understanding the role that each one plays. So like I said before, we always keep consumer at the heart. We'll be listening to what they want. What we found when we did some research was that for Weekender, our biggest, most beloved platform, that need, that in-person connection, the trying of the drinks, the seeing the big live acts was so important for them. So we will continue to make Weekender our IRL big festival platform, but take things like Casa Bacardi, which is a little bit newer, where we can experiment with new technology, see what people are liking about. And the response from the Metaverse when we did it in 2021 was amazing. And then playing around with what the needs are. How do we get people excited The metaverse it's more inclusive because it can reach everybody and anybody and all around the world. The weekender is high energy, impact, people to people connections, that joy that you feel. But it's not one or the other. There's definitely a space for both. And we'll be looking to explore what our consumers want and how we can give them both, the best of both worlds.
A question that many people have, consumers mostly, the marketers may know, is where is this metaverse?
Where is the metaverse?
Where is it?
Where is the metaverse?
Where
It's such a
is it?
meta question. So the metaverse is essentially a always on shared virtual space that consumers can be, grow, and live with their avatars. It essentially is it's like the Matrix almost, where it's like a real-time world.
And the game, The Second Life, is about 15 years old. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
an early version of Metaverse
pretty much, I
1.0?
think, because now the more users that join, it lives in independent real time. So users make decisions that then immediately fit into the next stage and iteration of the metaverse. So from a marketing standpoint, and like I said, we did Casa Bacardi in the metaverse. For us, it mirrors the real world in so many different ways. So marketeers can go into it and take out of home spaces like they would in real life. They can create and sponsor live events. They could even create collabs with partners and do merchandising that people can buy in the metaverse. The whole host of marketing really does mirror from the real world, but it goes back to being authentic, being transparent, and not tacking onto it like it's a gimmick, because these consumers, again, are super educated around advertising, brand, and product messages. If they see something that seems inauthentic in the metaverse, they're not going to engage with it at all, and it could further harm a brand's reputation. So we're looking at how we can do that beyond what we did with Casa Bacardi in the metaverse, potentially live events, potentially collabs, all of that kind of stuff. But it's a super, super interesting space for us.
So, Zeenah, there's the digital world, there's the metaverse, and there's social media. And these are three distinct strategies you probably have. Let's talk about social media. What's the social media strategy for the brands?
So we were actually one of the pioneers of the content creator model. About 10 years ago, we set up an agency, 1862, working with our partners, OML, to really tap into the social clout that content creators have, because their voices are authentic. They have a community of people that love them, and they can push our product messages and our brands in an authentic way that's right for them in their voice. I think over the last 10 years, in terms of the algorithms of reach, what is paid, owned, and earned media, the fact that so many people are tapping into this content creator space, we've also had to evolve our social media strategy. So whilst we still rely heavily on content creators, we think they're a great vehicle and platform to be authentic and bring our brands forward. We've also looked at creating a paid and owned strategy where we have our own social media channels, where we're looking at integrating it with geo-targeting through the line in IRL, where we're looking at pushing out occasion-based messaging through paid media posts and actually evolving our strategy. So it's not a digital strategy, but actually the social media strategy is baked into every single thing that we do as our brands.
And does India need better guidelines for social media marketing, influencer marketing in particular?
I think that the guidelines are pretty clear about what we can and can't do. I think it's more about working within those guidelines, but also remaining truly authentic and transparent. The social media audience, primarily millennials and now Gen Z, which was born with social media, they're smarter consumers than any have ever been before. They're used to being hit with brand messages across multiple platforms, across multiple times of day. So they know when brands are being authentic and when they're not. So especially in this space, it makes us up our game in terms of ensuring that we're authentic, we're transparent, and we're not invading their conversations. We're just being a part of it with them.
And speaking of millennials and Gen Z, there's a saying that this generation considers the experience to be the product and the product to be the souvenir of a shopping experience, for instance. Do you agree with this contention to start with?
Yeah, I mean, Gen Z across the board is expecting so much more of brands. I think long gone were the days where you can put out a TV advertisement, have passive viewing, and see your sales soar. I think brands need to be a part of the conversation with these consumers. They need to demonstrate that they're authentic. They need to have purpose, and they need to walk behind that purpose, not just talk about it, but actually walk behind it. And again, you know, India especially is a population where 60% of it is under the age of 25. There's a lot of consumers that lean into brands but we need to authentically step into those conversations, be a part of their culture, where we're helping add value to their lives as opposed to, pushing our brand messages. Sometimes I liken it as we're not screaming from the rooftop at them anymore, but we're with them, dancing with them, having fun with them, and spending time with them.
And shouting at the guys who are at the
And then
rooftop.
shouting at the guys from the
But at the
rooftops.
rooftop.
Exactly.
Zeenah, how different is it marketing to tier 2 and tier 3 India? Is it a different strategy entirely? Is it tweaked a little bit?
Well, I think it's about understanding consumer perceptions towards alcohol, their education around alcohol, and ensuring that we are pushing the message that's relevant to them in a socially responsible way. So metro cities, Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, they're the center of gravity for cocktail culture. Most consumers are very educated and very experimentative around the products that they drink. In tier 2 and tier 3 cities, we've seen across the board in India, a premiumization trend happen. So people are leaning into knowing a little bit more about the products. They're experimenting, maybe trying out a few things to spend a little bit more. And for us, it's about knowing what types of messages resonate with them. How do we communicate them in a way that is bringing them along the journey and helping educate them, as opposed to telling them what to drink or how to drink it. Mm-hmm. The joke, as I've heard, is every 50 miles, the language changes, the culture changes, the food changes. Mm-hmm. We also need to be aware of what will work in a tier 2 city in Bhubaneswar won't necessarily work in a tier 2 city in the south, for instance. And so understanding those nuances, what are the cultural contexts that people care about, and working for a drink responsibly message to elevate all of those.
Is this what makes India unique, or are other markets similar that they change every 100 kilometers?
I think India is probably the most unique in that way. When you have culture, language, food, it's much more. The US is 50 states, and yes, there are definitely nuances, but it's much more uniform than India is across the board. So really, and you've seen that with consumers recently in India, this whole vocal for local, champion your local process, what's locally sustainable and sourced is becoming very important. So even Indian consumers are learning more about what is the local culture in the north if you're living in the east? What is the local culture in the west if you're living in the south? So actually being a part of those nuances where everybody's being educated and knowing how to tap into those I think India is the most exciting market in the world for that.
Do you consider these artisanal brands to be competition to you?
I think it's actually amazing that this is happening in India. It plays to the premiumization trend that we were talking about before. People want to know how their product is made, what ingredients are put into this. They're experimenting, making different types of cocktails at home, and they're really leaning into those brand stories. It makes us up our game and really see it as a positive thing. If the industry is expanding, we're all expanding. Consumers are becoming more educated. They're leaning into the quality of intrinsics. It can only be a really good thing for us. And I think it's also made us look and rethink how our product innovations are really tapping into that and really pushing that notion forward.
Has the last 2 years of marketing during the pandemic changed anything about marketing for good, or is it going to be snapped back to business as usual?
People will talk about home entertainment premiumization, but if you look at actual people, real life, keeping consumer at the heart, 3 themes that were already happening got massively accelerated during COVID. And that was curiosity, convenience, and comfort. And the expectations around those 3 things have increased massively. People want and are hungry for new experiences, new products, new things that they can have. They have upped their quotient for convenience massively. We've seen e-commerce platforms boom like crazy, but also then the comfort and the flexibility to make their own decisions when they want to make it. So flexible working has become a huge thing. People talking about what they like to make at home, being comfortable with your surroundings, all of that kind of stuff. We tapped into it quite a lot with those 3 themes. For curiosity, we launched a whole host of new innovations. We launched Breezer Bliss and Watermelon Mint. We launched the Bombay RTD, which kind of sits into the comfort, convenience, and curiosity element. We did Casa Bacardi, the Metaverse. We did the Breezer Vivid Shuffle hybrid model. Within convenience, we brought the bar to people's homes. So with Doers Home Edits, we brought the on-trade experience with a bartender and a bar to hang out with your friends and give you that on-trade experience that you can have. And with convenience where we can do it, so in West Bengal and Orissa, we're allowed to partner with Swiggy and do Breezer home delivery. And actually, within 2 years, Swiggy in West Bengal now accounts for 10% of our Breezer sales, which is a huge increase over 1 year, which really demonstrates consumers' need for that convenience factor. I think those three things are not going to go away. They're going to continue to accelerate. But then obviously the things that probably we're very hyped about, like OTT subscriptions, for instance, we've seen a massive drop in that post the pandemic. So, and even when Netflix made their announcement about switching their subscription model, we saw their share price drop completely. So I think the future of OTT platforms, I think, will still remain, but the acceleration that it's had during the pandemic will probably teeter off a little bit, as we've already seen.
And the pandemic also threw up some curious contradictions. The state of Maharashtra, for instance, in spite of liquor stores being shut, in spite of lockdown, and presumably in spite of liquor companies not being able to do much marketing, liquor sales hit record numbers at some periods of the year. Does that give marketers a little pause to think about what you're doing? That maybe if you didn't do anything, maybe you'd sell more?
Well, I think those are, again, one of those kind of short-term blips that comes with the pandemic. I think with the shutting down of liquor stores, obviously there's going to be acceleration of people that have been buying. But I think throughout what we've seen is, and even with some of our brands, in times of uncertainty, people choose certainty. So we had, Bacardi, Bombay Sapphire, Grey Goose, are real tried and tested brands that everybody knew. They saw a huge uptake in the market because they were trusted brands that people knew that they wanted to lean into. And I think once you saw that huge influx of alcohol sales, that teetered off. But what didn't teeter off was the leaning in to cocktail education at home and trying to experiment with different food and alcohol pairings, and all of that kind of stuff hasn't really gone away. So I think it's been, how do we tap into, let's see that short-term spike, but then let's see what's been kind of left after and tap into that, because that's what consumers are really leaning into in the alcohol space.
And one of the things you've mentioned a couple of times in this interview and you talk about is responsible drinking.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Bacardi's work in that area, because alcohol, it could go either way.
Yes.
This is right, consumption.
So we're the largest premium spirits company in the world, which means that all of our products are at a premium level. The education around that becomes very, very important. So we always promote a responsible drinking message. There'll never be overconsumption in any of our content or any messaging that we put out. On social and digital, we always have an age filter that we push forward to make sure that it's legal drinking age in every single state. And then on top of that, we have a partner called Double Verify that makes sure and checks all the placement of our content to know where, it's not just who it's showing up at, but where it's showing up is done in the right way. It's everybody's job in the alcohol industry to promote a responsible drinking message. And for the most part, I see most big companies doing a great job there.
Mm-hmm. Zeenah, next, let's talk about some of the other brands that are in the Bacardi stable. Bacardi obviously is the most well-known of your brands. What are your plans for your other brands? You have Bombay Sapphire, you have Patron, the tequila, you have Dewar's. What's going on with those brands?
Yes, the tequila category is growing. It's still very, very minuscule here in India, but the excitement around the tequila category is growing. Patron is a premium tequila that is pushing the messages around margaritas, around the palomas. We've got some really simple serves to kind of educate the consumer beyond just the shot moment, which is very much where it is right now. I think Bombay is poised for a lot of really interesting innovations without giving too much away. Over the course of the next year, you'll see some great innovations coming through from Bombay that will be very relevant and exciting for the Indian consumer. Grey Goose, we've got a whole new campaign coming through, very exciting, to be launched in the next couple weeks. And really, it's about making the brand more inclusive for everybody and really kind of bringing a bit of the swag back to Grey Goose that it has. And then Dewar's. Dewar's is one of the best liquids, in my opinion, for whiskey. We've pushed this double age messaging, and we have white label, which has been in the market for a really, really long time. But we have plans to really accelerate our premium portfolio. So we have 12, 15, and 18, but also very, very excitingly, this week, we'll be launching 2 new innovations coming through. So Dewar's Double Double, which is a 21, 27, and 32 premium variants of whiskey. The 32 won the world's best whiskey, taking out single malts, Japanese bourbons at the San Francisco Blind Tasted Spirits Awards. And then also a Japanese cask finish for Dewar's. So it's the first Scotch finished in Mizunara casks. And it is going to, I think, blow the market away. So innovations for Dewar's is going to be very, very exciting coming up. And that's just to name a few. We've got more innovations and more exciting campaigns coming your way.
And let's assume hypothetically that television advertising were allowed once again, or print advertising were allowed once again for liquor brands. Does that change the game completely for people in the liquor industry, people who have marketing roles like you?
I think it would change the game, but again, it comes back to what is the purpose of advertising for all of our brands? Where are our consumers? Are most of them on TV? Are most of them still on digital? Are live events still necessary? Hopefully it wouldn't be a mad dash to just TV advertise, because consumers consume media everywhere, every second of every day. And TV as a whole is still very effective, but there are lots of other channels that are effective also. So if that were to happen, we would still be looking at where can we authentically, incredibly push our brand messages to our consumers where they're at, not where we want them to be.
You've created a number of successful music co-brands, Jewelries, for instance, or the NH7 Weekender. Where are you going with these brands now that the pandemic is ending and life is getting back to normal? What's next for Weekender and for Jewelries, perhaps?
Well, I think Weekender is the big one that everybody loves. We did some research where it shows that Weekender is one of the most loved festivals in India. What we did was a scaled down version this year of 5,000 people in March, because our research showed people still weren't feeling comfortable with large scale festivals. We also wanted to scale up the festival and bring it to all those people that might not be able to travel to Pune. So we did a 5,000 person festival in Pune, and then we did 10 city takeovers all around India under the campaign. The Weekender is the happiest music festival. Bacardi's positioning is all around do what moves you. So we combined the two during this time post-pandemic and made it all about do what makes you happy again. So bringing people back to within all safety protocols, building those connections with friends. And it was great. It was really, really great. But we're looking at next year. What does the next year, December iteration of Weekender look like? And it's going to be very, very exciting. I think what all of our consumers have been asking for will be back for them.
And another trend that we see, perhaps in your tier one markets and the big metros, is a push towards health. People trying to get fit,
Yes.
people trying to cut down sugar. So therefore,
Yeah.
no tonic with your gin or your
Yes.
or your vodka. And as a marketer, how do you respond to this trend of people wanting to get healthy and therefore perhaps wanting to consume less alcohol?
Yeah, we actually have seen that across the board, that kind of drink less but better. People are still drinking, but they're choosing to drink more premium spirits. They're choosing to drink more elevated cocktails that have better ingredients in them. In terms of low ABV, that's definitely low alcohol by volume. That's definitely a trend that consumers are doing. We have a whole host of products that really tap into that. So we have Martini Fiero, which is a vermouth that is 14% ABV. So as a lengthener in a drink, it's much less than a gin and tonic. The options for lower ABV, more sessionable drinks, we're definitely pushing through. We just launched Breezer Bliss, which is a kind of better for you range with natural ingredients, real fruit juices, less sugar than the core range has, so that we can tap into that trend and be where our consumers are going. I think it's going to be very interesting to see where that goes in India. And what we will always do is innovate where our consumers are asking to launch new products where it really adds value. So I think this will be a really interesting space as well.
All right, Zeenah Vilcassim of Bacardi India, final question. What do you drink?
Oh, I mean, for me, it completely depends on the time of day, the occasions, everything. Right now, I'm absolutely loving a Dewar's Highball, which is just Dewar's soda and a slice of lemon. Lower, ABV than just drinking, straight whiskey cocktails, more refreshing. I love a Bombay Negroni.
Mm-hmm.
A Patron and tonic with a slice of orange is also very good. I took a long time during the pandemic to figure out what do I enjoy drinking at what times of day. And I actually experimented so many things with so many different cocktails. And so now I get to kind of make that at home when I'm hanging out with my friends.
All right, Zeenah, thank you very much for talking to us on Melt.
Thanks so much, Suresh. It was really great being here.
And that's a wrap on this episode. You can follow Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com. And if you'd like to follow me, it's @Suvenk on Twitter. Till next week, goodbye and thanks for watching.